Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Paul, the Canadian Snowman, here once again with another awesome series. Or, welcome people who are new here, since I just said welcome back. Yes, we're doing the third Crusade. This is the beginning. It's actually not a very long series, which is really cool. And yeah, the third Crusade. The beginning. I'm trying to remember. I did the first Crusade. I'm trying to remember what that was about. And all the Crusades are pretty much the same, right? You have basically the Christians coming down and trying to take over Jerusalem from the Muslims. Is that it? I'm sorry if it's wrong. I think so. And they kind of try and take it over. Isn't that kind of how it goes? I'm not sure. It's just like the Christians, like the Christian allies, right? Like, the British, but I don't know. I'll find out. And I'm also, before I hit play, I'm gonna probably put under the community tab, like a place for people to suggest like a one shot video, or like or a 2-part video, like the short stuff, and then I'll probably make a different thread for like the longer series, so people can leave their suggestions over there. So between the longer series, I can put some of the smaller ones. So anyways, I'm probably gonna do that. But right now I'm gonna we're jumping to Third Crusade, guys. I hope you guys are excited. This one actually finished second in the last poll I had going on, and so I'm really excited to see what it has to offer. And so the first Crusade, all I remember is that they basically the course they took to get there, and it failing, right? So I don't remember much at all. Like I said, that 2-part series was a while ago. You're free to check it out. But anyways, we're going to jump right into this, guys. I hope you guys are having a great day and all that good stuff. Please hit that like and subscribe if you're new here, please, and thank you. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. I think this is 5 parts. Let me see. Or 6 parts. Now, I think this is all of them together. And then the 4th Crusade. So we might be doing the 4th Crusade with this one, because it looks like this Crusade's 4 episodes, but it has like 1 episode on the 4th Crusade. I think that's how this works, and then the last one is just all of them at once. So obviously, I'm not doing that one. So yeah, so this is 5 videos, not that long. It seems like a perfect thing for a series. But anyways, guys, we're gonna jump into this, and I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited. Dun, dun, dun. It's like we're jumping to a different time period. We just did like Hannibal and Caesar, which was 1,000 years earlier, and this is. So it's like between Roman empires, right? I mean, between the first Roman Empire and then the Holy Roman Empire, and like between those, I don't know. Anyway, we jump into 3, 2, 1. Oh, it's good. Yeah. Kings and Generals are awesome. Check them out.
Shout out to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. Learn more about Squarespace and their offer feature by all the major European. Triggered by the Ayyubid Siege of Jerusalem in 1187. The Third Crusade was a monumental clash with fascinating battles, legendary warriors, and fantastic military commanders. Triggered by the Ayyubid Siege of Jerusalem in 1187, it turned into a massive military venture by all the major European powers, which finally checked the seemingly invincible generalship of Saladin. Welcome to the first episode in our series on the Third Crusade.
Okay, so it's all the European powers, all the European powers who are Christian, which I guess back down was most of Europe. Don't hold me to that, but I guess whatever. Here we go.
Ship of Saladin. Welcome to the first episode in our series on the Third Crusade, starting with the Siege of Akka.
Okay. Saladin, I heard that name before. That movie. What was that movie? Oh, my God. I forget the actors though, but I believe it was Crusade. This part was probably their earlier the first Crusade or something before then. Where the Muslims took over but a guy was wanting to be king, but he turned it down, and another guy ended up being king, and then he did some stupid stuff, and then he got killed, and I don't know. I don't even know why I brought that up. The kingdom, not the kingdom, the last kingdom. I don't know. Maybe you guys can, if you guys know what I'm talking about, let me know in the comments. It was a good movie though.
In July of 1187 at Hattin, the Ayyubid Sultan of Egypt and Syria picked apart and crushed the army of the Kingdom of Jerusalem, led by Guy of Lusignan. On the 20th of September 1187, Sultan of the Ayyubid realm, Saladin, arrived with his victorious army outside Jerusalem. While the city's defences had been strengthened, Jerusalem was a city in crisis. It was swollen by refugees from the countryside fleeing the war, and was deprived of fighting men by the annihilation at Hattin. Although the defenders, commanded by Balien of Ibelin, resisted with valour, the city was bombarded by catapults and mangonels, and after days of siege, the sides started to discuss peace. As was typical of Saladin, lax and even generous terms were finally reached on the 2nd of October. The surrender was agreed days later, and on the 9th of October 1187...
I'm sorry, what they just discussed there of how Saladin took this over was just like in the movie. It's been a couple of years since I've seen this movie, but I remember there was a massacre, and then they sieged the castle or wherever, and it fell. Like, you guys know what movie I'm talking about, right? But it just said that. It's kind of amazing how I brought that up, and it actually relates to this. So I'm sorry. I've stopped it like 10 times right now. I'm sorry. We're getting into it. We're getting to it.
The surrender was agreed days later, and on the 9th of October 1187, Saladin peacefully marched into the Holy City. After that siege, Saladin had captured most of the Crusader cities on the Levantine coast, including the economic centre of Akka. Meanwhile, the ancient city of Tyre resisted the Muslims when an Italian noble, Conrad of Montferrat, arrived from Constantinople and seized command. Conrad of Montferrat, now in total control of Tyre, sent the Archbishop of Tyre, Joschius, to the west. He bore tales of Christendom's catastrophic defeats to the Pope Urban III, who died on the 20th of October 1187, supposedly from the shock of the revelation that Jerusalem had been lost.
I just want to pause it just to see basically see the countries here, because like I don't think we've done many videos on this channel this time period, and obviously the Holy Roman Empire. It's the Holy Roman Empire, so we did the 30 Years of War. So I know about the Holy Roman Empire now, at least some of them anyway. And I just, what stood out to me was England is way down here. They own England, of course, England, the island, and then they're way here with like next to France, and it's very interesting, like that England's down here, because you usually you usually don't see them there. So I always find it interesting when we go to different time periods, how the countries are kind of different. So I just wanted to point that out.
Supposedly from the shock of the revelation that Jerusalem had been lost. Shortly after his death, Gregory VIII succeeded him, and by the end of the month, the proclamation for the Third Crusade was made.
There you go.
It is at this point we must take a moment to look at the situation in Western Europe and the reaction to the fall of Jerusalem.
Okay.
Deepening rivalries between and within the Western powers exacerbated the problem that the previous Second Crusade, which had been utterly defeated, had discredited the notion of holy war. In 1152, Frederick I Barbarossa had assumed power.
I'm sorry, I pause a lot. But yeah, the Second Crusade, I just want to say I don't have the Second Crusade on my channel. I tried to find one, and there really wasn't any good videos, and it pretty much I guess that's why it just wasn't much to it. So it's probably not worth doing a video on, or someone wasn't worth for someone to make a video on it. So I'm just wanted to point it out there. That's why there's no Second Crusade, because there's none out there, and I guess that's why, because it didn't last long.
In 1152, Frederick I Barbarossa had assumed power in the Holy Roman Empire, and in 1155 he formally ascended to the imperial throne. His realm was powerful on paper, but its regions were also notoriously reluctant to conform to central authority, and he had to spend decades subduing warring factions in the empire. To the west, the Counts of Anjou, who were formerly vassals of the French Capetian kings, began to grow in power. Henry of Anjou, the current ruler, then proceeded to add the Duchy of Normandy to his holdings. After marrying Eleanor of Aquitaine, who was previously married to the French king Louis VII in 1152, he ascended to the throne of England in 1154, ruling over a realm encompassing parts of the modern British Isles and France, and known to historians as the Angevin Empire. The Angevins were the vassals of the French kings from the Capetian dynasty via their holdings on the continent, but they were often more powerful than the Capetians, and this friction would leave a mark on the upcoming Crusade. However, the stunning victories of Saladin in 1187 were enough to break the deadlock. As the Pope's declaration of crusade was spread through Europe's royal courts, tens of thousands of Latin Christians pledged themselves to the cause, which created a massive upheaval in European society, especially in France, where many aristocrats began to rally their own contingents. However, the participation of kings was crucial to Crusader success. This is where we must introduce one of our main Christian protagonists, Richard, the prince who would later become known as the Lionheart. This young prince, who was warring against his father, supported by the new French king Philippe II Augustus, was the first to take up the cross in November of 1187. It should be noted that the prince was rash and eager to enhance his own glory and prestige. Richard's decision sent shockwaves throughout Western Europe, forcing the Angevins and Capetians to act. Philippe Augustus and Henry II met at Gisors during January of 1188 in order to discuss a settlement in the presence of leading nobles. Among the attendees of this assembly was Archbishop Joscius, who preached a sermon on the dire state of Christianity in the Holy Land. This address prompted many French lords to pledge their support. Amid the zealous fervor of the meeting, the two monarchs made public declarations of their determination to fight in the Third Crusade. In order to raise funds for the venture, the so-called Saladin tithe was imposed, but was more successful in the more centralized English territories than the decentralized French holdings. Though they were among the first to commit, both England and France were still embroiled in conflict, and neither would displace their military forces unless the other did the same, which caused...
I was going to say, because England and France, they've always been like at each other's necks throughout history, so it's kind of odd to see them kind of working together. But I guess they're reluctantly working together because I guess they're both Christian countries, and so they're kind of just we'll deal with each other for now, right? Pretty much, right? Anyways. One second. All right, sorry. I wasn't sure if I left my windows open or windows down in my car or not, because it started to pour rain, so I had to run and check to make sure my windows weren't down. Anyways, I'm back. All right. 3, 2, 1.
And neither would displace their military forces unless the other did the same, which caused delays in the crusade. Richard, worried that his father was about to disinherit him as heir to the throne, allied with the French king in autumn of 1188. The two launched a swift assault into Normandy during June of 1189. Unable to resist this invasion, the English king sought a peace settlement. At a conference on July 4th, Henry accepted all terms. Richard was confirmed as the successor. 20,000 marks were paid in tribute to Philip, and the three would crusade together during the following year. However, by this point Henry was physically shattered and ill, and died 3 days later.
Wow.
His son ascended to the English throne as Richard I. Upon taking the throne, Richard immediately began intensifying the realm's efforts to raise funds and organised his professional army. After he and the French king had done this, they met in late 1189 and early 1190 for final preparations. Then, in two identical ceremonies, one after the other, the kings took up their symbolic pilgrim satchels and staffs before setting off for the Levant on the 4th of July, 1190. They would march to the coast and then make their way across the Mediterranean by ship. At this point, Richard had around 17,000 troops, while Philip's contingent was smaller. Further east, Emperor Frederick Barbarossa, through decades of tireless campaigning and shrewd politicking, had imposed a never-before-seen amount of central authority onto the feudal realms of the empire, and also reached advantageous agreements with northern Italian states and the papacy. In terms of wealth, martial resources, and international prestige, Barbarossa's power easily outstripped both the Angevins and the Capetians. After biding his time for a few months after the Crusade's proclamation in order to see which way the popular wind was blowing, the Holy Roman Emperor took the cross on March 27, 1188.
So all the, because in the movies and stuff and pictures, you see the white robe with the red cross, right? It's a red cross or is it a black cross? I think it's a red cross. And so all these countries wear the same thing. Like, it's not just one country. All the countries together wear, the Crusader cross. Is that it, or is it just like one area? I guess I said they took the cross. So I'm assuming it's all of them.
27th, 1188. He made swift preparations, exiling his political enemy, Henry the Lion, and leaving his eldest son Henry in Germany as heir. Most of the Crusaders under Barbarossa marched along the route used by earlier Crusades. In order to ease his passage, diplomatic contacts were made with Hungary, the Byzantine Empire, and even the Seljuk ruler of Anatolia, Kilij Arslan II. All went well until the Germans reached Byzantium's borders, as Emperor Isaac II Angelos had already formed a pact with Saladin to deny any Crusader access. Barbarossa progressed with force anyway, capturing...
It does make more sense, though, to go by sea. Like, I don't know, I'm assuming the sea would be a lot faster and run into less trouble because you're not going through other people's lands, So I'm wondering, maybe he just didn't have the ships to do it. Why was it Barbarossa? Why didn't he just go by a sea? With the French and the English. Because now it seems like he's got to go through this gauntlet of people just to get to Jerusalem. And like, I think it was like the first Crusade, you end up losing a lot of men just trying to get to Jerusalem. So I don't know.
Any Crusader access. Barbarossa progressed with force anyway, capturing Philippopolis before advancing on Adrianople. With Frederick quickly bearing down on the capital, a compromise was reached in February 1190. The Byzantines allowed the Crusader army to move to Gallipoli and cross into Anatolia with the aid of Pisan and Greek ships. Back in the Levant, events were progressing rapidly. All attempts by Saladin to take the principal Christian enclave of Tyre had failed, including a lengthy blockade and an assault with mangonels. Instead, Saladin turned to politics to help foster inter-Christian conflict. Believing he was a spent force, Saladin released the monarch of the Kingdom of Jerusalem, Guy of Lusignan, who had been a Muslim prisoner since the destruction of his army at Hattin, in exchange for a promise that he would never take up arms against Muslims again. Upon his release, Guy rejoined his queen in Tripoli and then marched upon Tyre, which was a city in his own realm. When he arrived, Guy demanded to be admitted to the city as its king, but Conrad refused, stating that he would keep the city until the Crusaders came, and so Guy returned to Tripoli. When the first Pisan and Sicilian ships arrived to assist in early...
I don't blame him, because Conrad's like, hold on a second, you just got released by Saladin, and now you want to take over the place that he was trying to take over. Yeah, something's fishy here. He feels like if he gets, if he hands it over to him, he's just gonna hand it over to Saladin, and then bam, they're the effort to take Jerusalem's already, been, stopped or whatnot. So wow, I wonder what would have happened there if he did decide to take it over. You think he would have turned against them and allowed Saladin to take it over, or maybe just not allow the Crusaders to stay there? I don't know.
When the first Pisan and Sicilian ships arrived to assist in early 1189, Guy took a high-risk decision to besiege the coastal trading centre of Akka. On August 22nd, he set off down the coastal Scandalian Pass, but was discovered by the Muslims a few days later. Messengers relayed Guy's position to the Sultan, but he hesitated and did not meet them in the pass. The relatively small Christian army arrived outside Akka on August 28, 1189. Not thinking this meagre force a threat, the defending Muslim garrison jeered at it mockingly. However, since his defeat at Hattin, Guy had apparently developed a sense of strategy. He encamped in a strong position on the nearby 120-foot-high Mount Taurus, where he had a natural defense and a commanding view over Akka. The first proper action took place.
Okay, I was wrong. I was thinking he might just hand over Saladin. Obviously not, because he's going against the Muslims right now at Akka. So, and they're laughing at him because they have a smaller force. I guess they're taking him pretty lightly here.
Foot-high Mount Taurus, where he had a natural defense and a commanding view over Akka. The first proper action took place on August 31st, when the Christian forces unexpectedly attacked with ladders, almost succeeding in taking the battlements by shock and awe before Saladin's advanced scouts arrived.
Wow.
Afraid of being caught out in the open, Guy's attacking forces retreated back to the camp. Over the next few days, Saladin himself arrived with the main army, destroying any hopes the Latins had of a quick victory and forcing them to fight on two fronts. It is likely that if at this point Saladin had coordinated with Akka's garrison, he could have crushed the Christians. But again he wavered, instead holding a cautious position on the hillside of El Karuba, about 6 miles to the southeast.
I was going to say, it looks like you got him trapped there. I was like, take advantage of your situation while you can. You got him surrounded pretty much. Because just by the rectangles here, it looks like they're the Crusaders are extremely outnumbered by the Muslims here. So I guess you're just being very careful, because I was thinking, because they're still waiting on ships to come, right? More Crusaders to come. I think you'd want to take them down before more Crusaders, more backup arrive. Anyways,
on the hillside of El Karuba, about 6 miles to the southeast. Under the veil of darkness, the Sultan managed to sneak a detachment of reinforcements into the city, while during the day, mounted Muslim skirmishers would be dispatched to constantly harry Guy's camp. In any other situation, this would have been a good strategy, but Saladin's caution at Akka was a fatal misreading of the situation. One crucial factor made this way of warfare fail: the sea. Slowly at first, but growing as the weeks wore on, a constant stream of Frankish ships began to arrive in the region. On September 10th, a massive group of 50 ships arrived, carrying 12,000 Frisian and Danish crusaders. In addition to the ground reinforcements, these ships also helped to tighten the Christian blockade of the city by sea. By the end of the month, even Conrad of Montferrat had come south from Tyre to assist Guy, supposedly bringing 1,000 knights and many thousands of infantry with him. With their increased numerical strength, the Christian leaders decided to attack the Sultan's main force, which was behind them, head-on. Unless they did this, full attention could not be focused on the siege of the city. So, on October 4th, Guy arrayed his forces on the Akka plain into 3 ranks. Archers and crossbowmen were in the front, melee infantry formed up behind them, with heavy cavalry in the rear. The army was also split into 3 divisions on the left, right, and in the centre. Notably, Templar cavalry was in the centre and Hospitaller cavalry was on the far right.
What's the difference?
Rather than charging, the Crusaders advanced at a walking pace towards Saladin's Muslim army, aiming to cohesively engage the enemy all at once. At mid-morning, the Christian left finally made contact with the enemy, where Taqi al-Din was the commander. Hoping to lure the Franks into a trap, he sent in mounted skirmishers and then feigned a retreat. This maneuver was so convincing that Saladin really believed his nephew had been defeated and dispatched troops from the centre to aid him, weakening that part of his line.
It worked so well that Saladin thought that if he knew that was the point of it, to get wow, he sent more guys to help him just because he thought, even though he knew that was the plan, he thought they actually got defeated. That's funny, man.
Troops from the centre to aid him, weakening that part of his line. Observing the shift, the Crusaders sent in reserves and routed the weakened Muslim centre, opening the way to the Muslim camp. For a moment, it seemed Saladin would be defeated. Flooding through the gap in his line, some Crusaders even reached the Sultan's personal tent, where one of Saladin's attendants was killed. However, the lure of victory and its spoils were too much to resist. The Latin formation, coherent until this point, disintegrated when the undisciplined footmen turned to looting and plunder, halting their momentum completely.
Damn.
Greed was certainly a motivation, but intense hunger also played a part. Meanwhile, the veteran Templar Knights doggedly pursued the fleeing Muslims, but were now unsupported by their infantry. They had charged too far. Saladin turned and expertly managed to rally his fleeing army, speeding across the line on his horse to motivate his soldiers and leading an attack on the isolated Templar contingent, which attempted to retreat. In the ensuing conflict, many brothers of the Proud Order were killed, along with its veteran commander, Gerard of Ridefort.
So who's the commander of the Crusaders here? I guess I'm just used to like Caesar's troops and Hannibal troops just from, lately, previous episodes. Now I was thinking like, it back then, if like Caesar's troops just stopped and said, "Nah, I want to go loot," or Hannibal's, they would have been like crucified, man, if those troops did that. So are these guys like just not all on the same page, and you're just like a whole bunch of different people together, and there's not really one true leader, and so they don't really have to take orders from them? Because man, that's a big mistake, man. I guess if you're starving and stuff, but I guess you need some discipline. Like wait till the battle will be over with. Wow. Like Saladin noticed, I guess he's seen what was going on. It was like, man, you guys got a messed up army right there. I'm going to turn around and, make you pay for it. Like, wow.
Brothers of the Proud Order were killed, along with its veteran commander, Gerard of Ridefort. At this point, the situation for the Christians became even more dire when the 5,000-strong Akka garrison sallied forth from the city, threatening the camp and the rear of the army. Sensing they were about to be surrounded, and witnessing the defeat of the Templars, the Crusader force fled back to their camp. Those in the Christian centre who were still looting the Muslim tents were caught and killed, while others were cut down while attempting to run. Though he attempted to do so, Saladin was unable to press this advantage, as Latin reinforcements sent to the Crusader camp under the command of Geoffrey of Lusignan fiercely resisted Muslim attempts to overrun their positions. The Christians had come seeking battle that day and had been defeated, with some 3,000 to 4,000 dead or dying, which the Muslims threw into the river Belus. However, Saladin had also suffered during the battle. In terms of dead and injured, losses had been relatively small, but those who had fled during the route to the camp did not return and proved hard to replace.
Wow.
Worse still, the attack on the camp had crushed morale, as the Crusaders had plundered vast amounts of money. The Siege of Akka and the Third Crusade would continue into the next year.
Okay.
Thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video.
Well, there you have it, guys. So we're gonna continue the siege tomorrow, I'm guessing here. That was definitely pretty interesting. I'm definitely not used to, like, the discipline of troops kind of going off and looting before a battle is being over. But like, those are losses on both sides. I mean, Saladin's troops, a lot of his troops did not return, but he's in his own lands, right? I mean, that's where. So I think it'd be easier for him to get more troops together because that's his land. He's closer there than it would be for the Crusaders, because Crusaders' land is a lot further away. So for them to go ask for backup, it's just not possible to get some backup soon. And so very interesting. Like, if you're the Crusaders, like, you need every man you can get. Like, you can't afford like do stupid mistakes like that, because when you're sieging a place, like, you need more men than that are in the castle, like a lot more men. I forget what the ratio they say is. Like, you need at least a 10-to-1, bigger ratio than those in the castles or whatnot. So I don't know. We're going to see what happens next. There's pretty much telling us, like, basically how everyone got together and how the Third Crusade starts. So definitely very interesting. I'm very curious to see. I'm assuming that they're going to get this. The siege will be successful, because I don't see there being like 4 parts of just one siege. I don't think so. So I'm assuming that. I'm not sure. I guess I can always fall acre. So obviously, we found it out. It's definitely gonna fall next episode. So it'd be really cool to see how that happens. But anyways, guys, please hit that like and subscribe. I hope you like this. I hope you guys are excited with the Third Crusade with me, because there's a different time period. Very exciting stuff as the Holy Roman Empire, going from the Roman Empire to the Holy Roman Empire, which brings in like the French and the British. I think this is kind of like the beginnings, kind of the French and the British kind of thing. So I wasn't sure, because they're kind of they're on the same side here, which is just odd. But anyways, guys, let me know your feelings in the comments below, and yeah, we're gonna continue on with the Third Crusade. Awesome stuff. Like, subscribe, and you guys are amazing. I'll catch you guys in future videos. Peace. I am out.